And we are live. Welcome to another Games Talk Live podcast, episode number 144, I believe. Anyways, I'm Jay Fonz. Along with me this week, of course, is Hargeet Chani. I've got Jake in the house. He's back with us. And a special guest, a first-timer, if you will. The Turk is here tonight, fellow content creator. We'll get into why he's here a little bit later. But right now, we're going to do what we usually do. Go around the room and see what we've been doing this week in gaming. Hargeet, what have you been up to this week, my friend?
Pretty much just Indiana Jones, which is eating up all my day and night. I haven't slept as much as I normally do, but yeah, according to the this year on Xbox, I'm at 78 hours on Indiana Jones. But
Wow.
But either way, I've been going through finding every little thing that I can, and I think I'm close to the end, but I'm not sure. But
Nice.
but we'll see.
Nice.
So that's
nice.
what I've been doing. And I was trying to get my TV installed, and that failed miserably. And we'll see what happens next.
Yeah. So apparently, so if you guys don't know, Hargeet bought this gigantic TV, mini LED as well. It's not just like a projection screen. It's a really heavy TV. What is it? What size is that, by the way? 100?
110. It's the Hisense UX, 110 UX.
So
and it's a 240-ish pound TV.
How many people? Yeah, how many people came by to try to lift that thing?
4 people showed up from Best Buy, and they couldn't
do it.
How to lift it. Yeah, they just couldn't lift it. They're like, yeah, this
4
is too heavy.
people.
4 people
couldn't lift it. Jeez. Those guys
I remember
at Best
back
Buy,
in the day with the Sony Vegas. I had the 36-inch Sony Vega.
Those things.
And yeah, I had to lift that crap, me and a friend, and like that was 250 pounds. It sucked.
Yeah.
No handles, like very sharp edge, stupid plastic everywhere. And but we did it. We even took it up and down flights, like whatever. We pulled it off. But this is bulkier, I guess. Like as far as like it's 110 inch, right, versus 36 inch. So, but either way,
it sounds like those guys at Geek Squad need gym memberships.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Anyways, Jake, what have you been up to this week, man?
Well, since I was last on this show, I have put over 100 hours into old school RuneScape Leagues 5. So that's about 2 weeks-ish. I was complaining on the last show about how I'm just never going to run out of games, and I'm trying to clear my backlog. And here I am yet again pivoting to an MMO and putting hundreds of hours in. It just is what it is.
Yeah. Ooh. I messed up there. There we go. Yeah, I had to turn you down a bit because you came in screaming loud. I had you up all the way for some reason. I think that might have been
because from last time I was too quiet.
Yeah, that's probably it. All right. Well, the Turk. Welcome, my friend. Welcome.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. What have you been up to this week? Have you played any games this week? What you been doing?
So before we get into introductions and stuff, I've been swamped at work. We've been having I work with a bunch of people in Singapore, so I'm working on like an 80-hour work week right now. So between meetings, I've been playing some Diablo 2 Resurrected, just trying to grind and get some some of those great godly gear items, and just listening to people talk at me.
Godly gear items. That's what we all want, right? Yeah, I'm going to fix your camera too. I've got you shifted over a little bit. But anyways, we'll do that during the show. For myself, I've been playing a lot of PoE 2, Path of Exiles. I got to say, addicted is not even the word for it. It's definite crack.
PoE games are dangerous, man. You go in, you never get out.
It's really good. I just have to say, like, I've tried to play PoE, the first one. The skill tree in that is so intimidating. In this one, it's much more user-friendly, but still so robust, so good. They just have it laid out perfectly, in my opinion. I'm having a blast with this game. Just got my Ascension recently, and I'm going into the third act soon. But then I'm just going to do it all over again with another character, because that's how much I'm enjoying the game. So, yeah, I'm enjoying it. They've done a great job on this. There's things they've been tweaking along the way, things they've been nerfing and stuff. And yeah, they nerfed my character pretty hard. But you know what? At the end of the day, it's basically a beta. So it is what it is. I signed up for it. It's early access. And you got to expect things like that. Aside from that, this week we had the Keeleys. We had I call them the Keeleys, the video game awards. Now, I don't know about you guys, but was there anything in this award show in terms of winners, that is, that maybe bothered you?
I got one I want to gloat about.
Game of the year, by the way, was Astrobot. And of course, Balatro, Black Myth Wukong, Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erdtree, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and Metaphor Refantasio was up for that. But Astrobot won overall. What'd you guys feel about that?
I was totally okay with it. Last time we were on here, I said that I said it was a toss-up between Astrobot and Metaphor, and I'm totally okay with this. And by the way, maybe this will send a message to Sony that they can go back to being kind of like they were in the PS2 era and give us games like that, and that it'll still get them their accolades and awards that they love so much.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I have no problem with Astrobot winning Game of the Year. I said, that it's up there for a reason. I mean, I played the game and I enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. It gave a nod to a lot of the old PlayStation characters throughout the years, PlayStation in general, just that whole 25th anniversary thing, 30th anniversary thing, actually, right? Just amazing stuff in that game. So I'm not at all shocked. And, I wanted personally, I wanted this just to really piss off a lot of people out there. I wanted Shadow of the Erdtree to win, not just to piss off people, but the fact is I love Shadow of the Erdtree. I think it was the best game I played this year. I know it's DLC and you had to play the first one, so it's kind of weird that it's in this category, but it's in there. So it had the right to be there, and I would have loved for it to win because so many people did not want it to be there in that category.
I don't think it got any awards this year, did it? I don't think it won a single category. Isn't that crazy? After all that controversy about it being up there, the whole changing the rules to allow DLCs in, it just doesn't get anything.
Yeah.
And you would have thought, since we had a bunch of other really good games, it's like, why did we have to put that game in there? Couldn't the many other, popular titles have gone in that same spot?
One of the things I was thinking too was last year, if you remember, they had Phantom Pain, which is the DLC for Cyberpunk. They had it in the ongoing best ongoing game, right?
Phantom Liberty, not Pain. But.
Yeah. But the thing is, at the end of the day, for me, it doesn't belong in best ongoing game. DLCs, it doesn't seem like the right fit for it there. And I think they probably adjusted that. But however, I think they need to make its own category for DLC. Honestly, that's what they should do.
Best expansion or something.
Yeah, because ongoing games, when you think of that, you think of Fortnites, you think of COD, you think of games that are just continuously going, MMOs and stuff. That's what you think of. So I thought that was kind of weird. Was there anything that any of you wanted to bring up that won or that didn't win that upset you? Or
I want to brag about one that I was an outlier on the episode I was on with D-Batch.
Which one is
and
that?
that's that I said that Metaphor was going to win Best Art Direction. And what won Best Art Direction?
Best Art Direction was Metaphor Refantasio against Neva, Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erdtree, Black Myth Wukong, and Astrobot. And
that was a stacked lineup for that category. That was a good one.
Yeah, I think Shadow of the Erdtree was definitely one of those that could have won too. Metaphor, I'm not the biggest fan of the art style, but I get it. It's different. A lot of people loved it. I just thought it was just okay. But as for me, I didn't have a problem with any of the awards, really. I was good with it.
Yeah, no, this was good. Honestly, overall, I think the show this year, it almost feels like Keeley and the panels and producers and stuff kind of looked at the online discourse around last year's and almost addressed every comment. And then they had Statler and Waldorf up there to, lampshade everything.
That's hilarious.
And people are talking about how, Keeley was so mad at the commentary. I'm like, Keeley probably wrote half the stuff that Statler and Waldorf were saying. The guy's been he's had a huge online presence for years. He knows how to navigate the internet. It's not too shocking.
Yeah, and And honestly, the self-awareness from those jokes, like it actually helped to understand that, a lot of the people want to see the games, not necessarily, 2-minute speeches from every single award that's given out. So I appreciated it.
Yeah, me too.
So,
Go ahead, Hargeet.
yeah, so I did a comical thing yesterday because it was Friday the 13th. For those who all got pissed off that, by the way, I had predicted for God knows how long Astrobot is going to win the Game of the Year. You can put it in pen. It's going to be Game of the Year, right? I've been saying it forever. So it obviously won. So then I wrote a nice little thing and then did this.
The putrid stench of 30 years has given some a total fear that Astrobot will win Game of the Year.
And the Game of the Year is Astrobot.
You have. You definitely are a PlayStation hater. Definitely are a PlayStation hater.
I'm making fun of the people who hated the fact that Astro was winning.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess we all kind of figured it.
I mean, I had predicted this for so long. I'm like, forget it. Come on. Especially once that 95 came out. Good luck. Good luck. It was going to be Game of the Year. Get over it.
Yeah, 95. That was such a good score for that game. You know what else got a pretty good score? And that was Indiana Jones. And had it released earlier, that might have been there instead of
one of
Shadow
my controversies. And this is piling on Xbox. I said there were two possibilities here. Either they're grossly incompetent and they're putting it out in December, or they have no confidence in the game and they don't care.
Yeah.
And it turns out they're grossly incompetent and they put it out in December. And like, what the heck are you doing? They should have known better. If you want anything with this game, you have to put it out earlier. Otherwise, this is what happens. They missed the BAFTAs. They missed the Game Awards. Hopefully they make something in DICE. We'll see. I don't know if that's going to happen next year because the slate is ridiculous next year.
I was going to say, man, luck. I don't know if it's going to make it into next year's.
There's too much. Ridiculous next year. So I don't see it. Now, as far as like awards, I was a little off by was best ongoing. I thought Fortnite had that in a lock. They introduced the whole ability to do UGC. They had all these major expansions with like Lego and I just figured they had that. Like I didn't think anybody else really came close, but no, they gave it to Helldivers. I'm like, okay, did Helldivers really do that much against what Fortnite did? I didn't see that, but okay. So that one to me was a miss. Best multiplayer also went to Helldivers, and I'm like, really? The best COD that's ever launched is not the best multiplayer? Okay. I mean, I thought those were misses to me. The rest of it, it just seemed pretty normal to me. Like most of them, a lot of them I aligned with. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. That makes sense. So I didn't really see anything very different there. But those two just seem very odd to me. I just didn't understand how best ongoing you didn't reward it to like the game that literally like just redefined itself this year in Fortnite. I'm like, really? That's not the one? Okay, I like fine. Fair,
and people are gonna be mad at you for saying that because everyone hating on Fortnite's the cool thing. I'm not a huge fan of it myself, but if you do look at it objectively, you have to look at things objectively, not subjectively. And
Facts.
Yeah, like
they
I
take
actually
care of that game. Those
you.
developers there, they actually put in a lot of work in that game, constantly updating things, constantly putting out those different popular skins and stuff. They honestly cater to their audience. Whereas, like I'd argue, like even though right now they've got a sudden surge in popularity again, Helldivers 2, they put out that new stuff, that new DLC, the expansion,
right?
And it's going over pretty well. But once that's done, like they've got to come out with something else, and that's just the nature of these games.
So here's the funny thing, though. Even with that, oh, never mind.
Go ahead.
I've been tracking Helldivers player count numbers, concurrent player for like the past year, and only with this last update have they gotten back up to the hundreds. So
wow,
I was going to say it's not even in the top 10 right now, but it's like barely there. 1, 2.
That's
3.
True. That's true.
It's number 8, only followed up by Banana on Steam,
which is basically a crypto miner.
Yep.
And it's again, they've got something new for their players to play, and it's not something they had to buy into, so it makes a lot of sense for that to be there. But you're right, Turk. It's been like 30,000 maybe on average every day.
It even got into the tens for a while, especially
did
on
it? Wow.
on non-peak days and stuff.
Yeah.
And my big beef with Helldivers for best ongoing game is during the first like craze of it, it was super hyped and super popular, and the devs just kept nerfing things in order to like achieve balance.
Yep.
But it was killing the player base's enjoyment of the game. And then there was the controversy with their like community managers and stuff, and I don't think they ever really fixed a lot of those problems. And it still got those 2 awards. I'm just like, did people just keep buying into the hype, or were they actually like part of the game?
Oh, yeah. What false narratives am I pushing, Andrew? I see in the chat. Andrew Wilkins says Fonz stays pushing false narratives. I don't know what you're talking about, but it's just, the facts. I mean, you can look at the stats yourself on who's playing Helldivers 2 or who's not. Like, it's there. And plus their community managers and the developers there have pissed people off. Like, they've made people upset. And you don't do that. That's something that we're seeing more and more of. Developers just, having some just outlandish takes or just going after people on social media, and it's not the way to do things. It's really weird. But he's talking about ice builds. I see a Mark. No, that's funny. As far as the rest of the show, though, I thought the awards were fine. What I really liked about this year's show, I think it's one of the best game award shows due to all the announcements, all the game announcements. I thought, as soon as Keeley on stage said, "Here's a new game from an award-winning team," blah blah blah, and I mean that first scene. Right away, I knew when they were bathing that one girl and getting her ready, I knew it was The Witcher. I was yelling, "Witcher, Witcher, Witcher," in a chat with other people. I freaking knew it. Like, it reminded, like, the way it looked and everything. I knew it was Witcher. I was so excited to see it. And a lot of people out there are upset. I've got The Witcher here I can pull up while we're talking about it. But, yeah, it's oh, that's not The Witcher. What is this? Oh, that's a different game. What is going on? Well, hold up. No, it did not do what I think it did. It did. Oh my goodness. Oh, it recorded the same freaking trailer for the another game that it showed. Dang it. I was going to show The Witcher 4, the trailer for everybody. My apologies. But anyways, what did you guys think of the trailer? What did you guys think of Ciri being the main protagonist? I really want to hear from you guys because honestly, for me, after playing The Witcher 3, I kind of expected this. But Turk, I'll go to you first, man.
Yeah, so from my perspective, Unreal Engine 5 is awesome, and I really am interested in seeing how well CD Projekt Red can actually drive that engine, because we've seen a lot of developers jumping in on it and kind of stumbling with a bunch of the issues, and people keep dogging on UE5 saying it's bad, but I'm like, if you're playing Fortnite, you're playing Unreal Engine 5, and there's other games that are coming that are also Unreal Engine that are pretty spectacular. So I'm really interested to see how CDPR handles that. And then, of course, the narrative, it doesn't bother me that she's the protagonist. She was in the other game, Witcher 3. So as long as they do the character justice, I'm cool with whatever she looks like. So that I don't get the whole discourse of she's got like an arched nose or whatever. It's like, come on, guys.
It's so, I think she looks fine. A matter of fact, I don't find her like unattractive or anything. Like, it's first off, it's a video game, so it's kind of weird to say, but I'm saying like just on that level, I don't think her character model is unattractive. And you got all these people out there so upset by things like this. Anytime they see a woman protagonist now, it's like immediately pitchforks come out. It's like, I don't know about you guys, but I've been gaming for 40 years. And ever since I can remember, we've had women protagonists. And I don't ever remember this type of discourse. Ever.
Most of them are grifters. They're not actually upset about it. They're just getting clicks.
Oh, facts.
I mean, Ciri's basically the story centers around Ciri in the books. The only thing
I heard that too, yeah.
I can give some credit to some of it, but this isn't like a oh she's ugly woman protagonist bad. This is and it's not even that big of an issue because clearly they're diverting in the games from the books. They're making some changes, and
they are.
Even then, this seems plausible. But Ciri being a full-fledged Witcher, having the reptilian eyes or whatever you want to call it, I think it was established in the books that there's never been a woman that's passed the trial of the grasses and become a full-fledged Witcher before. And Ciri clearly is a full-fledged Witcher here, being able to survive drinking the Witcher potions, which non-Witchers can't survive. But, I mean, if there is a woman in the series to be able to do that, Ciri's kind of the obvious choice. And again, the games are diverting a little bit from the books, so I don't think that one's as much of an issue. It's the only one that caught me off guard a little bit, but I'm not really upset about it.
But isn't it something that you were kind of expecting to see after playing The Witcher 3?
I was expecting her to be the protagonist regardless.
Yeah.
My thing is just her being a full-fledged Witcher drinking the potions. But, I mean, they kind of, if it's The Witcher, and they wanted Ciri to be the protagonist for a long time. It was bound to happen. She was going to be a full-fledged Witcher. And by the way, considering how good CDPR are at writing, I'm sure there's going to be a very good, thorough explanation for it in the games.
Mark in the chat says she's hotter than that Fable chick. That's what we come down to these days. It's like, the basic question, well, is she hot though? Like when it comes to these female protagonists, it's like, it shouldn't matter, guys. It's a game. All right. It's so weird to me, but at the same time, this is what is going on in this industry, in this culture. A lot of people, I think, are just either so against certain, ideologies being pushed, and then you've got others, pushing back. And I think it's just like politics almost. People are going off the deep end both ways, both sides. They're going way too far one way, and the other side's going way too far the other. And it's just, we're just going to have to deal with it, unfortunately, because this is all I see, We had games like, they showed Intergalactic from Naughty Dog. And as soon as it showed this young, I believe she's a black lady, shaving her head, immediately people were like, oh my God, this is that. And I'm just sitting there going, what? You don't even know what's going on in this game. Don't even know. And it turns out that this game is inspired by Akira and Cowboy Bebop. It's basically like bounty hunters in space. And she is like searching for her boyfriend at the same time. Like, it's not what people think right away. Like, just looking at this woman, and it's like, wait a minute, are you really hating on this woman because she shaved her head in a video game? But not only that, the actress herself shaves her head. So it's like, you're hating on the real actress and like calling her this and that when you don't even know. Like it's just weird to me. It's weird. Magnum says, come on, Fonz, that Naughty Dog character is way on the nose. Way on the nose for what? See, that's your assumptions. But if you read what the game is about, you would know better. This is Indiana Jones all over again. When people were yelling, that was woke. And then they played the game and go, oh, well, I guess I was wrong. You had several people come out and say that.
I will say, though, they did in the trailer a really good job of setting that character's attitude and how they react to certain things. They definitely were able to paint the picture pretty clearly because people are already using it as like the I don't care meme or all that other stuff. So, again, Naughty Dog knows how to write. So are they going to write a banger here, or will it be kind of, like you said, echoing some of these other games or storylines?
Yeah, that's where I'm skeptical. It has nothing to do with certain ideologies or anything. Where I'm skeptical here is in the writing. And it's because The Last of Us, I love The Last of Us, the first game. The Last of Us 2, I despise the writing in The Last of Us 2. And it's because of that, and knowing that Neil Druckmann also wrote this game, I am skeptical. But I am optimistically skeptical because I'm going into this kind of intrigued. I'm intrigued by what I see. I'm intrigued by what I'm hearing the gameplay is about. I'm intrigued by the just the ambiance and the music and everything that they've showed within the game. The music is incredible. That old 80s vibe synth that you hear at the beginning and everything, so ominous and stuff. I love that stuff in games, and I hope there's more of that within the game. I know there's a lot of people in my chat that hate on Sony and everything they do. But unfortunately, guys, I don't hate Sony. I love a lot of Sony games, and I've been that way. I've said that for years. But like what you like, at the end of the day, this is a game that I'm going to base on its own merits. I'm not going to say, I'm not going to play that game because the last game he wrote I didn't like. I'm just going to go into it and base it on what the game does for me in this particular new IP, because it's a brand new character, brand new IP. I don't see a problem here. I think it's going to be pretty good.
I mean, studios can have peaks and troughs. Like
yeah, of course.
Looking at Nihon Falcom, for example, the Trails games, I really did not like the writing of the Trails of Cold Steel games. But then Daybreak came out for the West recently, and it was pretty good as far as the writing went. Do you know what this actually gave? Like, they gave me vibes. You guys, I'm assuming, have both seen Aliens, the 1986 movie.
Oh, dude,
you know, like
Alien 3.
Private Vasquez, man.
Vasquez,
that's what she reminded me of.
Yeah, what it reminded me of immediately when I saw her shaving her head, I thought of Sigourney Weaver in Alien 3 when she shaved her head. I was like, this reminds me of that, you know.
That's probably kind of what they were getting at. Like, that, I wouldn't be surprised if, like, we know the kind of stuff Neil likes and watches, so I wouldn't be surprised if that's actually what he was thinking of when he designed her.
And honestly, even if they write the character to be some woke, pillar or whatever, and they go into some of those stereotypes, it's like, if they effectively use those stereotypes or character features in a proper storytelling mechanic, I think that would be pretty sick.
You nailed it there, Turk, because that's one of the things I was talking about with a friend of mine. He had brought this up, and he goes, look, you get a lot of people that complain about either sexual orientation swapping or gender swapping or race swapping in games from established characters. Here it is, a brand new character in a brand new IP. Who cares? It could be a great game. It could be really a good piece of writing too. The narrative could be really good in this game. We don't know, but that's why before you react, wait till you see more on the game. That's all I'm saying. And yeah, they took inspiration from Akira and Cowboy Bebop as well for the bounty hunter thing and stuff. So should be fun.
As long as it's not just like shoehorned in, like, oh, she's this one certain thing. Like because I did some of that in Veilguard, I think, and it's like, yeah, that's pretty cringe.
They did a lot of that.
As long as it's fed into the story and like there's some character struggle that vets itself in its story arc, I think that'll be okay.
Yeah, I totally agree. As far as what else did they show? They showed Mafia Old Country. I am interested in Mafia Old Country. I thought that was one of the best trailers they showed, in my opinion. I'm a big fan of Mafia, the series. I even like Mafia 3. A lot of people don't like Mafia 3. I liked it. I had a lot of fun with the protagonist there. I felt like a badass, Lincoln Clay. He was cool. I liked him. So I'm looking forward to Mafia Old Country as well. You guys saw that, right? Mafia Old Country. Are you guys interested in that one? No?
I didn't see it.
Not. Are you interested? Do you play the Mafia series, or have you in the past, or no?
No, that I don't think they were really big on PC. I don't think.
No, I was mainly a console guy for many years. I just recently converted to PC.
Yeah, so that's probably why I haven't really paid much attention to it.
Yeah. Then we had Split Fiction, which is the new game from Joseph Ferris, who gave us that other co-op game that won Game of the Year 2 years ago. It Takes Two. That one is really appealing to a lot of people. Many of the people that played the first one or that first game really want to play this one because it looks like, again, it's going to be one of those games that you're playing co-op that has a lot of different mechanics from stage to stage and everything. Looked pretty good to me. I don't know, Jake. What do you think about that one? Split
Yeah,
Fiction.
I mean, my wife and I had a lot of fun with It Takes Two, so it's like I'm looking forward to whatever else he puts out. That studio's proven themselves, so
Yeah, no, for sure. And Hargeet's gone right now. You know what's funny though? They showed a lot of games that from like my earlier, gaming, early adult days. Games like Onimusha, games like Turok. Yeah, I was actually like, that blindsided me. I think this is the same development studio that made 40K, right? Warhammer.
I don't know if it's the same studio, but I know Saber.
Yeah, Saber.
Well, Saber is kind of like a mother
huge
company, right? So they have a bunch of different developers under them.
Yeah, it looks a lot like 40K though when you see the gameplay that it's got. I'm looking forward to it. I was, I'm one of those few people that really liked Turok on the N64, even with all its fog and everything back in the day. I enjoyed that game. Hargeet, you a fan of Turok?
Not really, but
Nope.
yeah, whatever. It's cool. It's coming back, right? There was a bunch of things coming back, so it's cool that
Onimusha
they
was
announced
another.
that.
Yeah,
dude, Virtua Fighter.
Virtua
Yeah,
Fighter.
I am not a fighting game fan at all in the slightest. I'm excited for that one. I mean, I actually really did like Virtua Fighter back in the day.
Me too.
And choosing RGG to do it, perfect fit. I'm totally excited for that.
Yeah, we were talking about.
Not to mention the big reveal. We'll get to that.
Yes.
Yeah, Hargeet. We also got to see Outer Worlds 2. Man, what did you think about Outer Worlds 2?
Fantastic that Obsidian has 2 games coming out in the same year again. Right? It's fantastic.
It looks a lot better than the
bigger
first
games,
one
but
too.
yeah.
I think
Yeah,
even
yeah,
graphically
yeah.
it looked better than the first one. The first one was really good. The only con I have, with the first game is the areas weren't big enough for me. I like to have a lot of exploration in games like that, like with the Fallout series. You get those bigger maps and stuff. I wanted more of that. So hopefully with this one,
big enough to me. It was a hub world based thing, right?
Yeah,
so
I hope they're a little bit bigger this time, though. That's all I'm
whatever.
saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that and Avowed is coming out. Hey, this is it's a good year coming up in 2025, man. Lots of games from Xbox.
Yeah, for sure. And then we had Project Century, which looked pretty darn good.
It's RGG. They've again, once again, another studio that's proven themselves. So, but you can pretty much,
yeah, right.
Like, when's the last time they put out a game that was like even just divisive? Like, when's the last time they've done that? Like Yakuza 6, I think, was kind of divisive, but even then, that was still generally well received. And that was a while ago.
Yeah. Yeah, that one looks pretty good. And as soon as I saw it, I was going, "Why does this look like Yakuza?" I kept saying that, and then I saw, who it was made by, and I go, "Oh, it is. It is from the same team who made Yakuza."
Yeah,
so
it is Yakuza. Yeah.
Yeah. So, was there any other games that you guys saw that you guys are kind of excited for?
Dude, Okami sequel. That's
Okami,
again, we're talking going back.
Yep.
So I've been saying this for years, and this garners some controversy whenever I bring it up. Okami is a better Twilight Princess.
Really?
I mean, yeah, they're different enough.
I remember Twilight Princess, but yeah, it's really good. I liked Okami quite a bit. It was a fun game, and so I'm looking forward to it. I don't care if like better or worse than others, whatever.
But, yeah, I know. It's but like they came out around the same time, and well, not close enough. And like there people did compare them a lot back in the day.
Got it.
We also got to see that
that
Final Fantasy Rebirth is coming to PC in January. And
are you happy that you bought it on PlayStation 5?
I'm so mad.
Dude,
I'm so mad. I'm livid.
Like, if you just wait, wait, it's coming.
Hargeet, I'm going to listen to you next time. So here's what I'm going to do. I've got about 12 hours into the PS5 version. I am scrapping all that, and I'm going right to the Steam version as soon as that, because it does look like Vaseline is smeared onto my screen on the PS5 version. When I saw just the way it looked, even through the compression on YouTube and everything on PC, I'm like, yeah, that looks so much better. Yeah, I'm definitely going to wait and play it on Steam.
I can't wait either, because the problem with the PlayStation 5 version is they don't want to update the upscaler, and we'll probably get into this later, because the PS5 Pro has the PSSR, and I'm just like, I can't wait to do Digital Foundry-esque analysis and just show people just how bad the developers intentionally made the PS5 version just so they could sell more PlayStation Pros.
And the other reason why I want to play it on Steam is because I've done something I thought I would never do recently. So since I've become more of a PC convert, I've went all the way, and I'm not using controller anymore.
Really?
I'm not.
Even I use the controller a lot.
I'm not using controller anymore. I've turned out to love the mouse and keyboard. Here was my problem. I was using an old outdated mouse from many years ago, which had 2 buttons. And I was like trying to play a game with it like that. I was trying to play
Did it have
PoE2.
the ball in it still?
No, it didn't have the ball.
No, that would be bad. Jesus.
But my good friend Mark, who's in the chat, goes, you need to get yourself a new mouse, dude. And I was like, oh, okay. So I did. And I fell in love with it. And part of the stuff you're seeing on the screen right now is my gameplay from PoE2 before I got the new mouse. So I've gotten better than this. But I'm telling you, it's a game changer. I love being able to point and click where I want to shoot, where I want to hit enemies and stuff, rather than use a controller. Because there's a big difference when you're aiming with the analog stick and when you're actually you got that pinpoint accuracy of the mouse. It's so different. It feels so good. So,
it's definitely way, way better for shooters. Like, it's the definitive way to play shooter.
And that's what I'm
Third and
talking
first
about.
person, by the way.
But
I play racing games, platformers, like RPGs, JRPGs. I still use controller for those.
Yeah. So for shooters, for ARPGs, all that stuff, like I'm definitely using my mouse and keyboard. I have not really tried a third person game yet, like an action adventure. I've not tried that yet. So we'll see on that. But.
So ironically, with first person shooters, controllers actually most enjoyed by pros and higher level players because of the aim assist. Once you get into lobbies that are just full of people on controller, you're going to be like, man, I hate this keyboard and mouse.
Oh, the aim assist stuff. Yeah.
Aim assist is a killer app for console, and it's frustrating.
Do you know what one thing I've noticed, though?
I love Counter-Strike.
I've noticed that the UIs aren't very favorable to controllers in most games. Most games, UIs and like just navigating menus and stuff is so much easier with mouse and keyboard. And that is one thing, especially with PoE2. There's no way I can play that game with a controller anymore. I tried it for a little bit, and I was like, nope, not doing it.
I played all of Baldur's Gate 3 on a controller, and I thought it was kind of clunky, but it actually wasn't all that bad.
I had to get used to controller on that a little bit because I was playing it on ROG Ally. And
yeah, I played it there too. Yeah.
Yeah, so like it's actually I wasn't expecting that controller implementation to be as good as it was, but mouse and keyboard's still better for that game.
Yeah, it was definitely serviceable.
Well, at least the ROG is a touch, right? So you can at least use it.
Yeah, you could configure that if you wanted. I don't like getting fingerprints all over my screen.
Then the problem with the ROG Ally is then if you're in this like hybrid mode, so like if you ever try to use a button, then the Ally is kind of like, was that a keyboard press or was that a controller button press?
I never use the hybrid mode on that. I always switch between desktop and mouse manually. I had it bound to a button press on the back.
Yeah, Baldur's Gate 3, by the way, freaking one of my favorite games. That game is just amazing. I've played that 3 times all the way through. I even did a Dirge run, a Dark Urge. Loved it. So I implore anybody who hasn't played Baldur's Gate 3, if you're into RPGs, real RPGs, play Baldur's Gate 3. Trust me. It's the choice and consequences in that game are great. Also, just the variety of choice within the game, how to just get over certain missions and stuff is just mind-blowing what you can do.
If you're used to modern games, it looks like the kind of game that would be padded out and fluffed out and get long in the tooth. Not at all. It's one of those games where it's humongous with so much stuff to do and ways to approach things, and yet it never ever feels like it's taking up too much of your time or it's padded. It's perfect.
And I was the opposite on all that. I found
you hated it.
So bored. I played it for 10 plus hours, and I'm like, I I don't even want to play this anymore. I'm done.
For me, I loved it. I loved it instantly. The companions, the banter between each other, everything, it was just so good. And now I'm loving PoE too, as you can see on the screen. I just love this game. It's so fun. I'm playing this sorceress that freezes stuff and blows them up, and I have to get close to them in a lot of scenarios, and it's just like, yeah, I'm the squishy sorceress trying to survive, and it's just fun. It's fun. Anyways, let's talk about why the Turk is here today, by the way. Let's talk.
So just the beginning of the Game Awards. I kind of
you want to talk about something? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
But like the beginning of it was fantastic. It was so good. The beginning of the Game Awards it was Todd Howard, Troy, and then Harrison Ford shows up. They give the award for best actor.
Melinda Juergens. Yeah,
Melinda is Melina Juergens, right? And then it goes into Witcher 4. Yes. Wow, what a start.
You
Damn,
missed
that
it
was
when we
good.
talked about that, huh? Yeah, it was so good.
Yeah, it was so good. Very good. And then I was watching the Game Awards live stream, and some of the chat was like, whoa, it's got to, and like, have you not played any of these games? Do you not, like, this is.
I keep the chat closed, man. Game Awards chat is horrible.
Theory, and how do you not know that this was going to happen? Like, anyway, whatever. So I turned the chat off immediately. Like, just shut up. I don't even want to hear it. Shut up.
You know what's funny about that chat? I have to mention this. So I'm in a Discord with Gaz and Colt, and we're all sitting there watching the Game Awards together. And I'm looking at the chat, and all of a sudden I see Gaz didn't say anything, but I see that he put something in the chat, and it said PlayStation sucks, and I'm like, Gaz, I said, I saw what you just wrote in that chat. And he just starts laughing. He goes, how'd you see that? Because it goes so fast in that chat. Yep. But I saw it.
But either way, so yeah, I thought it started really well. I thought the Muppets, like whatever, usually are cringe. This time it was hilarious. They poked fun at themselves a lot. It was hilarious, right? So I thought it was pretty well done. But anyway, overall, I thought the show was great. I don't know, guys, if you guys gave it a rating. I give it a good solid B. The only thing that pulls it from an A to me was that it was dragging at times, and like commercials really just. I so could just
State Farm Gaming. That made me laugh.
Like I'm kind of done with that over and over again with the same. Like, God, just go away. I don't I want to have it be concise and just keep going, right? But lots of good announcements, some great stuff. The pre-show was a little boring this time. I don't know if it was good for you guys this time, but last year I remember it being better. This year the pre-show was kind of okay. The only thing that I remember was like the Ninja Gaiden thing, but
yeah,
I don't know what you thought about that, but whatever.
No, as far as Marsh in the chat just read something. It said Jez just blocked D-Batch on X. I can't believe it. Poor D. Poor D. Yeah, if I had to give it a score, the Game Awards, I would give it an A-. And the thing that keeps it from a straight A for me, or even an A+ was the musical stuff. I'm not into it. I think the musical stuff, the theatrics is not for me.
I use that as my break so I can go buy a break and get some snacks.
I am only about show me the awards and show me the games. That's all I want to see. I don't need to know your musical playlist, Jeff. I just don't need to hear it. I just don't. And that's why I would give it an A-.
But this is like a Hollywood type thing that he likes to do, right? This is why one of the things I don't like was they released Indiana Jones late, because it's a Hollywood tie-in. It was perfect. It starts with this Hollywood tie-in. It was so good. But anyway,
Jake, what would you score it if you had to give it an overall score?
Yeah, A-, B+. Nice. Pretty much the same problems here. And I'm a big VGM person. Love video game music. I think that their choices for best music on most years is pretty questionable. Like in 2022, when I think God of War Ragnarok won over Xenoblade 3. Like, come on, that's one of the things that I'm not even willing to be subjective about. But it's fine. It is what it is.
Were you upset that Final Fantasy Rebirth won in the musical?
No, that's because it 100% it deserved it this year. That was a good choice.
Yeah, because so far, like I said, I'm only about 12 hours in the game, but I've always loved Final Fantasy music. I think it's so iconic, like it's so good. What would you score,
I gotta
Turk?
say, just overall, I gotta say the nominees were mostly pretty good. I think the nominees were all pretty good, and a lot of times it was like, well, I don't know, maybe this one, maybe that one. There were a lot of good options this time.
Yeah, Turk, what would you score it?
I probably rank it a B. I was having to fast forward through a lot of it just because, you know, I'm super busy with work and stuff. But like just like Argeet, whenever the music played, I just skipped ahead by like 5 minutes or whatever.
Yeah.
But I appreciated the Muppets. I think if they're a little more self-aware, I think that would be great because, you know, people want to see the games, not necessarily the awards. So, yeah, it was about a B for me.
Nice. That's not bad. So yeah, we all pretty much liked the awards. It was pretty good. But one reason why we've got the Turk here today, you know, again, he's a content creator. I've got his link in the description below. Check him out after the show. One of your videos that you had made, I think you titled it, "We've Found It, the Definitive PS5 Pro Equivalent GPU." What this man does is he goes into, well, he does an analysis on the PS5 Pro, compares it to other GPUs and stuff. And I found some of the things you do kind of arguably more insightful than what Digital Foundry has given us lately with the PS5 Pro. And a lot of people would say that you are shilling for the Xbox, which makes no sense because you're a PC first gamer. But I would like to know from you, what got you started down this rabbit hole to begin with?
Yeah, so like you said, I do a bunch of content creation and I'm a PC centric gamer, but my main thing is like looking at PC gaming from a, you know, just a user's perspective and trying to get more of a general gaming feel out of it. Because, you know, on PC, we can tweak all the settings. There's a bunch of technical jargon and stuff, but I think a lot of that kind of overshadows just how good a PC can be just from a, you know, set it and forget it perspective. And whenever PlayStation, or once the leaks started coming out with the PlayStation 5 Pro, you know, I have a background in hardware development. I got show and tell stuff. So I actually helped develop this. I don't know if y'all know what this is, but this is the Xbox 360 or Xbox One. Sorry.
Xbox One. Wow.
Yeah, I was the IO characterization lead for the processor. So like I've done hardware development on consoles. I also helped develop the cell processor in my early days of the career. So I love doing hardware comparisons and stuff from a PC perspective. So when I saw the PS5 Pro leaks, I knew people were going to start jumping on the, oh, it's so powerful, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, all right, let's go through the spec. Let's see what's actually being leaked. Let's tweak some of the settings and see how things actually play out. So back in last December, I had already pretty much nailed the PS5 Pro from a performance perspective. I think I was off on the CPU because it was advertised as like a 4.5 gigahertz CPU. So this was 11 months ago, and I was already telling people what to expect, right? And as the leaks started keep coming and getting more and more refined, I just kept refining some of my search. So I originally had a 7800 XT, which kind of matches the PS5 Pro spec, dialed it down with the power consumption. Then it's like, okay, you got the 7700 XT, the 6800, and then people, you know, I won't mention names from Twitter or whatever. They're like, oh, it has to have the AI upscaler for it to be equivalent. So I was like, all right, well, what GPU actually fits this? And at that same time, Digital Foundry went on IGN's podcast or whatever, and Richard Ledbetter let out the whole, well, the closest equivalent, or whatever British accent he's got. Yeah. He mentioned the 4070, and I'm just like, oh my God, why would you do that, dude?
Yeah.
Because if you're not familiar with PCs, the RTX 4000 series has a lot of improvements as well as like frame generation. So like it's the cream of the crop on PC. And as soon as he said RTX 4070, I was like, you got to be kidding me. So I went and bought a 4070. It's on my bench or bookshelf over there. I put the claims to the test. I tested the 4070. I used all of Digital Foundry's settings, resolutions. I put the GPUs I thought it was really close to. And I, at that point, was like, yeah, I'm still right on the money. Then they got their hands on with the PS5 Pro. I again put those same GPUs to the test, and it's like, I'm still right. I kept making the "I told you so" posts on X or whatever. And then there's just people on Twitter, they're like, "Oh, Turk, you're not at the right settings or whatever." And I'm like, dude, okay, fine. I did all the analysis I could. I found this one channel on YouTube that does like the by frame analysis, but for resolutions. And I was like, this is it. This is the information to put everyone to rest. So like, again, I recommend y'all go watch the video so you can actually see it with your eyes. By frame analysis, same resolution, same settings, and it's like my GPUs match. And now it's just like people are still saying, "Oh, well, it's not optimized on PC enough," or "Oh, it's not a Sony PlayStation first party title." I'm like, "Oh my god, dude."
Yeah, I saw the pinned comment you had was somebody saying, "So it is a 4070 equivalent," and you're like, "I'm pinning this comment." Yeah, I thought it was funny.
So yeah, that's kind of been my background. I've been watching Digital Foundry for a long time. So when people say, "Well, such and such game runs at such and such setting," it's like, no, you're wrong. So, and that's why I've got the Pro back here and I'm wearing the shirt. I'm a PC guy. I don't like consoles because I like PC better, but I do like to kind of have that perspective of the console player because the PS5 Pro is the best console, like it or not. It's going to give you the best performance, even if PSSR isn't great in some titles or the resolutions are still sucking in some titles. So that's kind of
what's going on with the PSSR anyway? Like, why are we seeing so many titles looking arguably worse in some regards with PSSR on versus the base model PS5?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different reasons. Some of it is the technology suffering from just being a new technology for Sony. And another thing is developer buy-in. It's a very nuanced issue because Sony's first party games, I don't think there's a title that has been bad with PSSR. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. I don't think I've seen one yet.
There's been like, no, I wouldn't say there's any first party that are bad with PSSR. There's definitely some with trade-offs, like GT7, for example. I typically keep it off when I'm playing GT7 because PSSR makes the distant detail look shimmery and low res, and if I'm racing on a track, I'm usually looking ahead on the track in the distance to look for upcoming turns. So, and Spider-Man, if you like move the camera when there's bright stuff on screen, like especially the sky, there's like a grainy effect even when film grain's not on. My conspiracy theory is that Sony trained PSSR's model on games with film grain, and that's why it looks grainy in some titles, but I'm probably totally off the mark there.
No, you could be right because again, it's Sony black box. Even if you worked at the company that makes the GPU or whatever, you don't necessarily have their proprietary stuff. But when you go to some of the third-party developers, it's then like, okay, do they have the right SDKs? Do they have the latest and greatest stuff from Sony in order to put that into their game? And that's why you're seeing like not Dragon Age. Dragon's Dogma, yeah. That one's not too great. You had Silent Hill. They had to just like turn the feature off altogether. I think Pandora,
Avatar Frontiers of Pandora and Star Wars Outlaws. They turned that off. What they did was they now give you the option to switch between FSR and PSSR in the game. And actually, I'm glad you mentioned those games because I think it's less about Sony first-party games and more about the fact that there really aren't any Sony first-party games that like push resolutions really low due to high graphical effects and use sub-native post-processing like or like RTGI, RTAO at like sub-native, and those are the games where PSSR really struggles in. But then you get to a game that doesn't have any like sub-native post-processing and generally has a decent input resolution. So, even Final Fantasy VII Rebirth or especially Stellar Blade, which I think PSSR upscales from like 1800p or something in that game. So, like in those games, PSSR looks good, but I don't think there's any examples yet of a game using PSSR that has like a low input resolution and uses sub-native post-processing and sub-native RT, which is stuff DLSS generally does really well and FSR usually struggles with. So our hope with PSSR was that like, oh, it's going to handle that stuff better for those games that like really struggle with image quality. We're not there yet. I think it'll get there eventually. I mean, NVIDIA with DLSS, they put such an obscene amount of money and research and development into it, and they have these massive teams that literally are dedicated just to training AI models, and Sony is not going to be able to ever match up to that. So PSSR is going to be a bit slower to improve over time, but we'll get there eventually. But I don't know. If you're looking to buy a console, you should buy into what it can do now and not buying into a promise, unless you like tinkering with hardware.
Yeah, and the other thing I'd add on that is like the PS5 Pro is the most powerful console, but its power relative to other things, primarily PC, I think people are overhyping just how capable it is. Like you were mentioning, these upscalers are not doing a great job at lower resolutions. Well, it's like, yeah, because upscalers have a really tough time upscaling from those lower resolutions. So given the console's already there, it's like, why are we adding ray tracing on top? Why are we then doing all these other things? So there's a bunch of compromises on the platform altogether. But I think, like you said, if they increased the render resolutions to 1440p, it would be a much different story. But then you don't get the extra effects. But then it's like, why don't you just play on the base PS5, which is what I posed in my video, because the PS5 is pretty dang good, and it's good enough for most people.
Well, yeah. One of the questions I wanted to ask you is, maybe you know, maybe you don't. As far as FSR3, I don't think we've had any games on console yet that utilize FSR3, but if we do come to that day where we get some games using FSR3, do you think that'll get closer to the PSSR now?
It would definitely improve things. So take, for instance, Ratchet and Clank. I say it in the video as well. They use a very terrible implementation of an upscaler on the base PS5 that even if they used FSR2 or like an early version of FSR3, it would instantly look better. Like Alex Battaglia mentioned there was over sharpening going on and that the developers even said, yeah, we're not going to do as much on the PS5 Pro version. It's like, if you do the same thing on the PC, it looks better. So they're intentionally leaving the PS5 over sharp, which they could account for. It's a AMD recommended spec to not use the sharpening values they're using. That's besides the point. But like you said, it's like if developers would update to a more modern upscaler, things would look better. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, prime example. It looks terrible. Back in the past, PS5 fanboys would constantly say, oh, this game looks good. I don't know what y'all are talking about. But now that we have the PS5 Pro version, and like you said, Fonz, it's like, yeah, it looks bad. And people are finally saying that. So I'm like, are you guys really looking through rose-tinted glasses, or are you just not able to see the difference and you're just jumping on the bandwagon? Because it looks bad.
Yeah, and if they were to use, like, say, FSR3 on the PS5 version of that game, do you think it would look almost as good as the PSSR version on the Pro, or no?
It would definitely still struggle in certain instances. I think Black Myth Wukong uses FSR3 because
so Black Myth Wukong uses FSR3 to hit 60. And
yeah, so it hits like 30-ish FPS, and then they turn frame gen on, and that gets it to 60. And that's why or at least Digital Foundry saw a bunch of the like ghosting issues
and latency too. It's getting a lot of latency as well.
But the counter to that, it won the Player's Choice Award. So it's like, does all this technology stuff really matter? And that makes me sad.
Well, I was talking with, I talked with Jason Ronald, who designed like the Series X and Series S. And I was talking with him about, today's tech and hardware and stuff. And he says they've gotten to the point where these AI techniques and these feature sets are like really needed because these games are pushing the hardware so much. But my thought process on this is I look back to last gen and I go, well, have these games really evolved that much? Because in my opinion, like if I look at games from last gen, they don't look that much different to today's games, but there's just like those added, I don't know, sprinkles on top of the cupcake, so to speak. Like we're getting more ray tracing and stuff like that. That's not absolutely necessary, because I've seen, you know, features that we've used in the past, like screen space reflections and things like that look just as good, like, or can be really good. And like the various lighting and stuff that they used to use. But now we're like so reliant. It seems like the developers are so reliant on this new tech and these new AI features that it's like necessary. It's become a necessary evil almost, because they've also introduced problems within games too. Like I've noticed, if I have to use frame gen, I notice the artifacts and stuff that happens around my characters or around edges, and I see that stuff and it makes me not want to use frame gen, but then I get stuck at lower frame rates or I have to tone down the graphics. So there's that.
Yeah, I definitely think we're the diminishing returns part of graphics technologies, because you can look at games like Hellblade. I thought that looked really good. It has some issues, and on console it's locked at 30, which I think really stinks. But then you also look at games like Indiana Jones, and I know a lot of people are really liking the game, but at least to me, outside of the foliage, the character models look pretty weird. And it's like, why are we shooting for 60 FPS with really plasticky looking Indiana Jones models? So I think we're at that cusp of, at least on the consoles, there's this, you know, trade-off of, do you want the fidelity or do you want the, you know, frame rate? And that's a tough struggle balance to hit.
Yeah, but we got to get to the point where I think, because the hardware that we have nowadays, especially like if you look at something like the 4090, it should be totally overkill for games, but yet it still will struggle on specific games. There's certain games out there like Wukong or whatever that you needed to use certain things or tone certain things down to really get the desired frame rate or whatever. It seems like we're getting to a point where the AI feature sets and these things that we're using or developers are using are causing, they're such resource hogs to your PC.
Yeah, if you put it in perspective, like in my video, I mentioned the PS5 Pro is effectively an RX 6800 or an RTX 3070, which those are pretty decent GPUs. That's kind of like the top end of the console hardware perspective. And you look at how many people are playing on that type of hardware, it's like, okay, do we spend the extra 50 grand to improve the performance of path tracing mode and overdrive mode on Cyberpunk for the people with the 4090s, right? So from a developer's perspective, I want to optimize for the most amount of people that aren't going to go and like flame me online or whatever, rather than go and cater to this niche audience that would benefit from shinier reflections on a marble floor.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that 100%.
Especially like you said, SSR is pretty darn good screen space reflections.
Yeah. You know, we've used it for years, and looking back at last gen, it games, you know, like, you know, you may not like it, but like Assassin's Creed Odyssey, for instance, it looked great. So, and it was beautiful. And looking at it today, it's like, well, it's not much difference than what we're getting with games that are coming out, you know, now. Like it just seems like the necessity of having to use these certain features that cause so much freaking utilization of your PC is just crazy to me. It's like, when is this balance going to like teeter in favor of the gamer? Like, when are we going to get games that actually look good but also run good without having to buy a freaking 4090 or buy a 4080 Super, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, we shouldn't have to do that to make them look.
Yeah, one of the things I'm a hardware developer, so I'm always like looking into the future to like what is going to happen. And one thing I'm really curious on is, when will the mid-range gamer, PS5 Pro type of gamer, have access to path tracing? Like, what type of console would that require? how many generations of RDNA do we need to cook, or NVIDIA? I don't even know what their baseline architecture is called. I know the chip names and stuff. Anyways, at what point can we
Blackwell's
start to
the one that's coming out soon.
Yeah, that's the code name, but they don't have like an architecture like CUDA, right? That's the core name or whatever. Anyways, like when can we start to see path tracing on a console? Because
I'm skeptical about PS6 even being able to do it. Because I mean, if you want to just do a nice, and you could probably have input on this with your background, but with PS4 Pro, we saw within 3 years we saw a GPU double the power essentially of the base PS4, and that released for the MSRP of the original PS4. And here we are with PS5 Pro, and that comes out 4 years after the base PS5 and is $700, so it's more expensive than the original base MSRP, and is a raw power increase is about roughly is up to 45%, and then it has some an NPU in it, so it's slowing down. Node shrinks aren't as big, the deltas aren't as big as they used to be, and it's harder and harder to get to cram that more powerful hardware into a less expensive, less power hungry box. And path tracing it'll get a more efficient over time. I think the software has got to improve, and that's going to have a big effect, but I don't know, man. I'm skeptical even that PS6 will be able to do path tracing comfortably. I think it's going to be rough.
And the other angle, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think it'll probably do it just like ray tracing was being done originally when it started, right? It just chugs your console. You just basically get 20 to 30 frames. You'll get it, but it will. It's just like kind of a 4060, right? The 4060 will do it, but you're not looking at getting 80 frames. That's just not going to happen. But you can do it. It's there. The feature's there. Has AMD actually implemented path tracing, or is it all kind of just software stuff that they're trying?
So path tracing is more of a developer rendering technology or technique. So it's not a architecture specific thing.
Well, RTX enables that capability within their cards, right? So they
you could do that on an AMD card as well. It's just the performance is not as good on AMD.
Not as good as the RTX, right? So yeah, so I look, the next gens that are coming out, maybe they offer that. I think it'll do it. It'll just be, it'll be low performance. And this was my headache with the whole mid-gen is how do you see it? How do you ever notice it? It's going to be so hard to tell. And that was why I was I just don't want, I've said this over and over again. I had that conversation with why am I
the Xbox
the guy,
Jason Ronald?
Xbox guy. Yeah, Jason Ronald.
Yeah.
That we just pointedly asked, "Are you going to do a mid-gen refresh?" And he's like, "Well, what would you want from it?" And I'm like, I don't want it, because if you're going to do it, it has to be expensive enough to make it worthwhile, because I want to see a difference. And to me, that means path tracing, because that's the only thing I don't have, right? So if you're going to do it, then charge me $1,000, charge me $1,200, and give me a box that can do it. Otherwise, I don't want it. I just don't care, because it's exactly what you're seeing with the PS5 Pro. It's it's marginal. It's meh. That, what's the point then? You're paying more for what?
And that's kind of
so easy with the PS4 and Xbox One. It was so easy to see that jump to the mid-gen.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is. There it is. I see it, right?
And that's one of the things I like to show in my videos, because Digital Foundry likes to pause, look at stationary things, and then zoom in ×4. I got a lot of heat for calling them out on that, but it's if your extra benefit for a console is something you have to go a 1 foot away from your screen, yeah, that's not the kind of improvement I want to see, right?
Exactly.
So one thing I challenge a lot of people is go and watch some of these ray traced games and see if you can tell the difference. Because Ratchet and Clank performance RT mode is pretty cool, but then with the Pro, it's it's a little cooler, I guess. And then with Dragon's Dogma, yeah, the ray tracing mode's kind of cool, but the shadows are a little better. Is that worth the $700 price tag?
Yeah,
and I think UE5 has been another major headache for all these boxes, right? It's I don't know if it's the fact that it's not optimized, or if it's really doing a lot of stuff, right? You look at some of these games that are just stunning, but that's because it's using a lot of RT features just kind of built into it. And when it does that, the performance tanks. And okay, maybe that's fair. That's just the way it is, right? But is that gonna kind of the thing they're going to try to fix, right? That was what they were trying to do with the PSSR, but it hasn't done it. So far, all the UE5 games have been the ones with major problems with this. It usually causes weird issues. I'm sure they'll figure it out at some point, right? But right now, it's not helping them.
Well,
but that has been the thing, right? So
it's pretty interesting when it comes to PS5 Pro because Marsh in the chat says, I paid for better performance and I love it on my Pro. Now, concerning performance, though, what kind of performance gains are you actually seeing on this thing? Because I'm hearing a lot of people saying that, like, it's giving me more frames and things like that. So, I mean, is it?
So there's two different ways to look at more frames from it, right? So if you've got like a 60 hertz panel and you're already playing a game on PS5 that hits 60 hertz, you're not going to see a performance improvement. But if you're playing a game like Elden Ring or Dragon's Dogma, I mentioned these games because everyone's talked about them, you will see an improvement in frame rate and it will be better. But again, it's like, okay, is 52 frames better than 43 frames? Can you see that? I don't know. But if you have a VRR panel,
that's the difference.
You'll definitely see an improvement, and you'll see a lot less drops and stuff. And maybe the benefit for non-VRR panels is the higher resolution, but that hasn't really played out as much as what people would hope. And then again, can you even see the improvement? I could show you guys some F124 footage on a 3070 and be like, yeah, can you see it actually go? And it's challenging.
Gotcha.
I think PS5 Pro has been really good for stabilizing GPU limited 120 frames per second modes.
Yep.
That is one case where because they're not going to be cranking up ray tracing and draw distance and stuff and resolution in the 120 FPS modes. So PS5 Pro's been pretty good about getting those from there's some games that are going from 90-ish to locked 120. So if this person plays a lot of games in 120, maybe they're seeing that.
Yeah, Call of Duty would be a good example of that because I think when at least Modern Warfare 3 dropped. Yeah, Modern Warfare 3 was the last one. One where you go into the Russian prison or whatever in the first level. With the base PS5, that would go into the 70s in that first mission area. But with the Pro, it's pushing into the 100s, right? So there's clearly an FPS advantage there, but you're already above 60. And if you've got a VRR panel, you're already engaging VRR at that point. So it's do you see 73 FPS versus 99 FPS with VRR engaged? So we're in this diminishing returns point where, there's probably 5% of people that are yep, I totally see it. That's why I'm buying the Pro. And there's probably 75% that are just I guess it looks better. I paid for it to be better, right? So it's a really challenge, at least from my perspective. Again, I'm biased just like everyone else. I don't think it's really worth the extra money.
Yeah. Raichi, thank you for the 2. He says, is it art if reflection are not handcrafted? Is it art if reflections are not handcrafted? Yeah, it's still art. It's still art.
Yeah. It's the machine's interpretation of the reflection.
Honestly, I loved that first video because regardless of what the fanboys are going to say, I think it pretty definitively puts to rest the whole PS5 Pro equals 4070 thing. And by the way, I was harping about that on Twitter, X, whatever, for ages, and people think it means I'm hating the system. No, I'm literally just focusing on the people that were calling it a 4070 equivalent because they misunderstood what Rich said.
Yep.
On that IGN, he wasn't saying it was
or 4090.
4070. Oh my god, that
dude. Okay, so I'm gonna name drop Nib. Still, no. The other day he mentioned the PlayStation 5 was equal to a GTX 1060, and I'm like, what on earth are you saying? He quoted some Gamers Nexus video that was they analyzed an RE Engine game and Dirt 5, which is really terrible when it comes to settings. Even Gamers Nexus mentioned it as well. So I went and tested the GTX 1060 and I'm like, oh, look, the PS5 is twice as fast in 4 of these other games. So it's sometimes I struggle communicating, putting things into perspective, but then it's these people keep pushing these alternative narratives and I'm just like, what are you doing?
So Nib was like he was one of the PS5 Pro equals 4070 people.
Yep.
And I think what he was trying to do there was his hope was, look, the PS5 launched performing like a 1060 and now it's closer to a 2070 Super or whatever. And like it's not really what happened. It launched performing like, well, the only real equivalent at the time was a 2070 Super. And then what was it, like 3 or 4 months later, the RX 6700 came out, something like that.
Yeah,
and
and
it's pretty much been a perfect comparison, and it's been locked since then.
And at launch, this was during COVID, right? So the only games that launched with PS5 native versions were Devil May Cry 5, the enhanced version or whatever, and then Dirt 5. These games are not, optimized at all. So,
but what I was getting at there was I like that video because it's good for like just definitively shutting down that narrative. But I really liked your sequel video where it's like, do these price comparisons actually really matter or mean anything? And yeah, I have a lot I want to say about that, but Fonz, would you be okay if he kind of went into that a little bit?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so to put some perspective in there, this is my latest video. It was can we build a $700 PS5 Pro killer? And go watch the video, help me out. But TLDR, no, you can't. The console is a killer value when it comes to a PC of this pedigree.
I like what you said there about like the PC. Yes, you can plug your PC into a TV, and yes, you can plug your console into a monitor, but they're both designed and optimized around, like, the console's optimized around the couch setup, and the PC's optimized around the desk. And they're not going to be directly compared that way. And I've been saying, I said this on previous episodes here before, I've been saying it on Twitter for the longest time. I think that directly comparing the price, unless it's specifically your use case, I think directly comparing the price between PC and console is dumb anyways, because the PC simply just does more things. Even if you ignore non-gaming tasks and you just are talking about gaming, you have a way bigger library on PC. You have mods, you have emulation, you have freedom to pretty much do whatever you want, remap controls. So a PC is just going to do more than a console, even in like-for-like scenarios. And so the only time you should be making a price comparison is if all you do is you just play the latest AAA games or all the latest games, and you mostly keep the settings default and you don't do anything else. Then in those cases, the price comparisons make sense. But otherwise, kind of dumb. And on the inverse, I think comparing specs, between PC and console, if you really think about it, like, it's fun to talk about and it's fun to debate about online, but it also doesn't really matter all that much. Like, does it really matter that the PS5 Pro doesn't match a 4070? I mean, what you look at it is it's $700. Is the performance you're seeing, is the image quality improvements usually what you're seeing worth that extra money, or is it better to just buy the base PS5 for $370 or whatever?
Yeah.
You're not cross-shopping with PC GPUs if you're an average normie who's walking.
So answer that question for you from your perspective, Jake. Is it worth it?
Honestly, I think for the average person, and most people should probably just spend the $370 and get a base PS5 instead, and not spend $700 plus on the PS5 Pro. Not where it's at right now. I mean, I have no problems with. I mean, I'm playing Astrobot and some of the other games that I've wanted to try. I wanted to get back into playing GT7 again, but I also am not very responsible with spending my money when it comes to tech purchases. So for me, like, I'm fine with owning it, but I think right now, as it is right now, it's just that 700 versus 370. That's a pretty big price difference.
That is.
That's huge.
It's almost twice as much.
Yeah, and then if you compare like the top 20, that one guy Matt Piscatella used to post those charts on Twitter all the time of the like top 20 games that are being played. The base PS5 knocks all of those out of the park. The Xbox Series X, I might struggle in one or two of them, but it's like at that point, why do you need the Pro? Do you need the improvements that those games provide? Probably not. That $375 price tag for the base PS5 is killer. Like, you can't even get a GPU that is similar to that in that price range.
Nice, nice, nice. Well, I appreciate the conversation there. Jake, was there something about Intel you wanted to bring up?
So that was actually a really good segue, you bringing that up at the end. So I don't know if that was intentional, but I appreciate that. So yeah, the Intel Arc B580 was just announced. And I know this isn't like a gaming hardware podcast or anything, at least not like PC GPU reviews, but I wanted to get something off my chest and take advantage of the Turk being here because I have thoughts on the Arc B580. So for those of you that aren't in the know, Intel actually does make some discrete GPUs for the PC, aka graphics cards. So graphics not built into the processor. And they had their Alchemist GPUs that released a few years ago, 2022, and lots of problems, but generally interesting and cool that Intel was able to. I think he's getting an Arc GPU right now off his shelf, but So generally pretty interesting. So Intel just released the B580, which is the first of the GPUs in the Battlemage lineup, which is the current gen. And the B580 is getting pretty rave reviews right now, and I think for generally good reason. I mean, the thing's $250. It has 12 gigabytes of VRAM in it, which every other GPU in that price range right now is 8 or below. And if you know anything about like the graphics card space, 8 gigabytes is starting to be a little bit. It's starting to not be enough for a lot of modern games, even at 1080p. And it's generally performing anywhere between like a 4060 to a 4060 Ti or a 7600 to a 7600 XT if you look at AMD. So yeah, great, like good price, good amount of VRAM, generally good performance in modern games. So it's getting a lot of rave reviews from outlets, but I'm skeptical about how viable the thing actually is in the modern market. And again, this is the part that I wanted the Turk to kind of bounce ideas off and maybe give me pushback if I'm being unreasonable. So I watched basically all the reviews for the B580, and a lot of the comments you'll see in the videos is, oh, thank goodness this thing exists. We need competition in the GPU space. Maybe this thing will drive NVIDIA and AMD to drive their prices down because they're charging too much in the low end and giving 8 gigs of VRAM. I'm just not really 100% sure if it's actually going to do that. So level 1 text review of the B580, they could not get Halo Infinite to work. In fact, I think Halo Infinite's generally been a pretty struggling game on Intel in general. Gamers Nexus and many other outlets had trouble with Cyberpunk, performance inconsistencies and crashes. Several outlets like It Grew couldn't get Star Wars Outlaws or Starfield to work properly or have good performance. So the thing's not, and not to mention games that are pre-DX12, like DirectX 11, 9, any older games generally have pretty piss poor performance. I loaded up Counter-Strike Source on my Intel, it's last gen Ultra 7, which had Alchemist graphics built in, and I got like 70 FPS at 1080p, and then I put an AMD Phoenix, which is like the AMD equivalent CPU against that, and it got like 3 or 4 times the frame rate. And the die size on the thing is almost as big as a 4070 Ti. Yeah. It's like 272 millimeters squared versus 290 or something. It's very close. So that means that Intel, because of that performance and those problems, Intel has to charge a low amount of money in order to move units and get press on the brand. But that means that if they're not making any money on those things, I think they've actually been open about that, which means they're not going to make that many of them. Which means that AMD and NVIDIA aren't going to see the B580 as a threat at all. If there's not that many in the market, then if there's not too many of them, then it's not a threat. It's not going to be competition. You need to be flooding the market with tons of the things to drive people towards them to even make a dent. So that's not going to compete in that way. And also, what happens when if they're not making that many of them? Like, they're all sold out right now, but if you look on Amazon, Newegg, they're not anywhere near the top sellers, which means they're not making that many of them, as I had guessed. What happens when supply gets low? Demand goes up, prices go up. So if you want a B580 right now, you're not paying $250, you're paying like $400. So it's not even at a good price spot right now because of that. And I don't think it's going to get much better over time because, again, Intel's kind of having monetary problems right now, and they can't afford to make a crap ton of those things. So good GPU for the consumers that are looking to buy it if you're used to tinkering with PCs and can put up with the problems. but I don't think it's actually going to bring competition to the GPU space, or NVIDIA and AMD aren't even going to pay attention to it. They know that Intel can't sell that many of them, so that's not going to affect their prices.
So I can speak this purely PC gamer and then kind of bring it back into the console thing if y'all like. You know, I could go anywhere if you guys would let me.
Absolutely.
I 100% agree with a lot of your points. At $250, this is a really cool card that's well equipped at the $250 bracket. The problem is from a PC gamer's perspective, that's already at the entry level GPU bracket. So you're competing with 4060s, 7600, I think is the AMD current one, but you're also comparing against previous generation NVIDIA, AMD. Then you're also comparing against the used market. So that price point is very challenging. And from a Intel perspective, they already have driver issues. I made a video about the A750, kind of jabbing at the guy that developed GPUs who left AMD.
Raja Kadori.
Yeah, I got comments on that for another time. But so it's like, yeah, I would love to do a comparison with that GPU just to say I have it. I was trying to look for my A750, but I couldn't find it back there. But to bring it back to like the consoles, right? It's, if you would like to get that kind of a GPU, if you're like not wanting to buy a 375 PS5, or I would wish Xbox would do a price cut, because you can't compete with a $375 PS5. That's like incredible. Like what potential GPU do you buy? Like Fonz, you said you recently got into PC gaming. It's like, what entry point is ideal for the new PC gamer? Do you go and buy a pre-built AMD 7600?
Well, you're probably looking at pre-builts when it comes to a new casual gamer. They're probably going to look at that. And I've seen deals as low as $12.99 for a 4070 pre-built.
And that's so crazy expensive. I've been a PC builder all my life, so like I see those prices.
But I mean, for a pre-built, that's pretty good. $1,300, and you're jumping into pretty good mid-range gaming there.
Yeah, in my last video, I saw some pre-builts with 4060s for like $1,000, and then I saw a 7600 that was like $800. So it's almost PS5 Pro territory if you drop your resolution down and you include the PS Plus subscriptions for however many years. You can make the math work however you want. But when where Intel is concerned, it's like, okay, what does an Intel pre-built buy me, right? Am I going to get a PS5 experience? Am I going to get a Xbox experience? I don't know if Intel is going to have the, like what Jake was saying, they don't have the inventory to supply these pre-built fabs, pre-built machines. And if the prices get too out of whack, it's like, no, I'll just go buy a 6700 XT off of Craigslist or whatever. So it's a tough market to crack. You know, AMD, there's rumors, I can't comment too much on it, but they're trying to get out of the high-end space. I don't believe
not even a rumor at this point. I don't think they're getting out of the high-end space, but I think for RDNA 4, it's going to be like RDNA 1, like the 5700 XT, where they spend a generation not attacking the ultra high-end, and just targeting good price performance in the mid-range. And I think they've already confirmed that, and it's not just a rumor at this point. But I don't think they're exiting the high-end.
They didn't confirm it, but I can't comment on it. So, but I will say, when you're talking high-end PC gaming, what are you looking for? Are you looking for 4K native? Are you looking for those path traced reflections? Going back to some of the conversation we had earlier, it's like, what's the benefit of having a 4080 Super versus a 4060? Like, are you going to get that much more enjoyment out of your games if you're on a 1440p monitor versus a 4K or an 8K monitor, if you can get one of those? I think you might even have an 8K 110-inch TV, right?
It's 4K, yeah.
It's 4K. So I was trying to get to the unmute. Yeah, it says a 4K, 110-inch. But yeah, whatever.
Yeah, in 8K, like I've done
8K
some spoofing.
Is very hard to see. You have to be very close to make a difference, and it's just, who's doing that?
Yeah, I spoofed my
like you were saying with the
49.
magnifying. It's like, Who's gonna sit there and magnifies? Oh, that's where it's 8K. Come on. Like,
Yeah, I spoofed my 4090. So like in the drivers, you could say, hey, make it run like it's 8K, and it'll output that many pixels, but then it downscales it. So it's like I've done it on my 4090.
Yeah.
It's cool, I guess, but like I don't have an 8K TV. So
what's the point?
but again, going back to this conversation, if you're a high-end gamer, are you playing 4K 120 hertz? What is it you're going for? What's the benefit over mid-range? So
yeah, for me, I always try to hit that. I have a 4K monitor, so I 4K and highest frame rates I can get. So usually I'll forego the path ray tracing. You know, I don't need path ray tracing. I'll have all the other bells and whistles to ultra or beyond that sometimes. And if I'm getting over 100 frames, I'm golden. I'm happy. That's where I'm at. Mark, thank you for the 10. He says, Intel and AMD are both not great when it comes to driver support.
I don't think that's true. I disagree for AMD. I've been extremely happy. I mean, it's not always perfect. There were issues. For example, idle power draw on the RDNA 3 for a while. Still not perfect, but
yeah, at launch
there was that. And there were a couple of games that would have problems for a while, but generally it's been really good. You know, RDNA 2 especially was like... RDNA 2 was just so rock solid and perfect for pretty much the entire gen. RDNA 3, you could tell they were having some teething issues with that chiplet layout, but still pretty good. I'm playing all my games, and honestly, I borrowed a 4080 Super for a bit and tried it out. I got a friend that has one, and we've traded GPUs for a little bit. And the AMD still does some things better. Like, so I have my secondary monitor right here, and I have a TV next to my PC, and I'll sometimes turn the TV on and maybe play games on my TV if I want. When I do that on NVIDIA and I turn the TV on and connect that monitor, the screen goes black and then turns on and then goes black and then turns on, and I have to wait like 30 seconds for everything to reconfigure and settle itself. And on AMD, I turn the TV on, connect the monitor, it just instantly works. No problems whatsoever. AMD's built-in recording, much better. AMD's control panel app, much better, even compared to NVIDIA's new like NVIDIA app. AMD still got that beat hands down. It's got its advantages still, and generally the driver quality's been good, even with issues here and there. And it's not like AMD or NVIDIA hasn't had issues here and there with certain games that they've had to patch and fix.
The only thing I have to complain about is my 9th gen or i9 14th gen.
14th gen.
Yeah, CPU. That's Intel CPU. You know, I got the first microcode because I've got a pre-built, and unfortunately with a pre-built, I got to wait for the manufacturer to that pre-built sends out the microcodes. So previous to finally getting the first microcode from Intel to go to the Corsair and Corsair to send it to us, I was using I was undervolting myself in the BIOS and actually mitigated my issues. I was running just fine. They sent me this microcode. I used the microcode throughout all my undervolting stuff that I was doing, and lo and behold, I was having crashes, and I was like, "What's going on?" So, turns out that microcode is the first one that came out, the beta, and there's another one that's coming for Corsair that actually undervolts and fixed that. So I did all my own tweaking again, put my own undervolting and everything in there, and now everything's running great. But shame on Intel, shame on Corsair. Like this whole thing has been a nightmare. It's been a mess.
And you know what kind of
thought
sucks?
It'd be that bad, right? I mean, like I chose the AMD. I chose that PC because I thought it was like the highest end of the time.
Yeah.
That CPU was higher. It was newer than what I had, and I'm like, oh, that'll be good. But no, it turns out Intel just sucks these days so bad.
But you know what really sucks though about the pre-built is like with your own PC, if you have an Intel 14th gen now, whether Intel can repair it and RMA it fast enough nowadays with their stock, who knows? But with your own PC, you just pop the CPU out and just RMA the CPU. Whereas with your pre-built, I think if you're like, let's say your CPU died and you were one of the unlucky ones with the 14th
you
gen,
have to go through the...
Pretty sure you'd have to send your whole PC back to Corsair.
Yeah, depending on the vendor, yeah.
I think you're 100% right.
Yeah, there's some... So the pre-built space is really Wild West, because there's some boutiques out there that use just off the shelf components. They buy them in bulk, where you could get like the updated drivers and stuff outside of the pre-built manufacturer. But then there's like Dell and like HPs that are super duper duper baked in. And then it sounds like Corsair's in a similar boat. So
yeah,
and you know, I've been doing PCs all my life. I can definitely feel the pain when it comes to like a fresh, you know, you're like, oh, I don't like Xbox this time. I'm going to jump to PC. It's like, all right, well, wait, hold on. What pre-built do you get? So I definitely feel the pain, and I empathize with people, and I wish they'd watch my channel more so they'd know more.
But here's the thing. In the future, what I plan on doing is like when I do get another PC, I plan on building my next PC.
I'll help you out with that.
There's lots of resources out there too that show you, and it
is so much fun. Like it is so much
scary. It's more scary than it is hard.
It's not scary at all.
It's scary to me, but
I still get jitters when I'm plugging in a CPU, because especially since everyone's got the pins in the motherboard now. I've wrecked enough of those in my professional career.
I'm not a huge. I prefer when the pins are on the CPU, old style. But 10 years ago, and I was in my college dorm. My roommate at the time was a total console guy, and he built his first PC I helped him pick the parts, obviously, but he built that thing by himself, put it all together in like 30 minutes, and had it up and running. And he had never done it before. So and once you do it,
it's a lot easier now, right?
Dude, it's so much fun. like putting it together and like booting it for the first time. I'll take mine apart and clean it and stuff just so I can rebuild it and put it back together, just because I love doing it so much.
Now, I found some tools online today. I was telling you about it, Jake, that will run through my CPU and run it through tests to see if it was one of the ones that got damaged. And so far, so good. It passes every test I've thrown.
I think it does. It does Prime 95 and then checks.
It does all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so far, so good. So I'm just not. I'm sticking with my own undervolting and stuff. Because it's worked great for months. I'm just leaving it with that, because I'm not getting any crashes or anything like I used to. So
one thing I like to comment on, I think it was Porter Rock on. No, it was Doc on Twitter.
Doc.
He was a big Xbox guy, bought a PC from like Cyberpower, I think, through Walmart.
Yeah.
And his power supply crapped out, and he got this
Shocker.
huge bad taste in his mouth. And I'm just like, oh, I wish I could help you at least try and debug and triage this thing, because the guts of his machine were okay. It's just the power supply went bad.
Dude,
and
the
that
power supplies in some of those pre-builts, that is actually when people are like new to PC gaming, it's the one thing I always say is, do not cheap out on the power supply. And if you're getting a pre-built, research what power supply's in there, because it's probably just.
I hope the one in Corsair is good, right?
Yeah, Harky. Yeah, all the parts that are in the Corsair is a really good machine. It's really good. Aside from that Intel CPU, but that's fine. It's still working.
Hot, right?
Yeah, it's working. Mine's not damaged, so I'm good with that.
Dude, Intel CPUs used to be known for, like, people would put up with the power consumption for the stability. That's what they used to be known for.
That's what I read. Everybody said Intel CPU is the way to go, and you can choose where you want to go with the GPU. But now
what happened was Intel had Alder Lake, which was really good, by the way, when it came out, like 12th gen. I thought it was really good. And I think they saw, like, Intel and AMD, both their development departments, they know what the competition's doing and roughly what their performance is going to be. Like, they know. And I think Intel put.
So I can comment on some of the Intel stuff.
And I just think they rushed it out just to desperately try to compete with Zen 4, and stuff slipped through the cracks.
Yeah, so from a hardware development perspective, you have to balance both your client-side CPU architectures and your data centers. And since Intel likes to do fab stuff too, they have to balance that with their fab processes and upgrades and stuff. So they were in this constant flux of trying to balance 3 plates on, both of their hands and their foot. So it's like they had to take extra time. So in order to keep the cadence, they had to pump something out. So hardware development is a very dynamic situation. And, I can definitely talk about it at length. It's rough. It can be challenging, especially when you're trying to shoot a target. So like for some of these next gen consoles, because like I I don't have the inside on scoop on it, but I know what can be done and how to do it. You got to think like, okay, in 2028, what games are going to be out there? What kind of performance are they going to need? So I can definitely empathize with the developers because it's hard to shoot at a moving target that's, gamers.
Well, it seems like everybody seems to be going with Unreal Engine 5. So whatever suite of AI features or whatever else it's got, that's pretty much the way the industry is going. Unfortunately, I would like to see more proprietary, engines, but it seems like they're going away from that. It seems like everybody is.
It's hard. Like, I also really like proprietary engines, but like, people question and ask why Halo Studios is switching to
I know.
Unreal, and
I would like them to go.
and I
with
know the
EdTech.
exact reason. No, I know the exact reason.
We all know why. We all know why.
Hiring talent. Everyone,
exactly.
like Epic Games did what Nvidia did. So Nvidia in the 2000s invested hard into CUDA, and what they did was they went to every college and university and essentially like set up CUDA programs. So now everyone who goes through college for that field knows CUDA. That's what they've worked with. Well, Epic Games also went into every university with game development programs and all the small studios, and like now all those students are going through school and they're learning Unreal Engine. So
No.
they did the same thing.
Preston, Indiana Jones is actually EdTech.
It is,
and people are praising it for it because it runs really well, it performs really well.
But I also think that's one of the reasons why their character models are not as
maybe
lifelike as like what we saw with Hellblade 2.
Maybe,
but like all the other graphics look really good.
It is important to remember that like Indiana Jones is EdTech 7, like Doomed the Dark Ages, for example, is going to be EdTech 8. So who
it's
knows
more
what
like Doom Eternal,
who knows what EdTech 8 is going to be like.
But looking at like, I've played a lot of games, ever since I went to the PC and I'm playing at those higher frame rates and stuff, I'm noticing more issues with gaming today. I'm noticing those little stutters you get with UE5 in games, and it just draws you out of the immersion when you feel them. And they're not all the time, but when you see it and you feel it, the traversal stutter and stuff, you're like, oh, there it is. There it is. And it sucks. And I don't know. It's in every UE5 game. Like the traversal stutter is there. And
so there's a couple of new technology, well, not new, but like technologies that are being implemented better and better. And there was a recent 3D Mark benchmark for some of the direct storage stuff. So I'm hoping that entire texture streaming, data sharing between your hard drive, your memory, and your GPU, I really hope that gets more fleshed out within the engines themselves, because it's going to make things a lot more manageable. And then, of course, the stutter and stuff should decline if they're not streaming in assets as much.
Yeah, they definitely need to have more emphasis on the efficiency of these engines.
And you gotta remember, Fortnite is built on Unreal Engine 5. It's 100% why Epic Games is constantly updating that game, because it's kind of their test bed for all these new features. And what can happen in Fortnite can happen in other games. Developers have to go and work with their Unreal Engine, application engineers to get those optimizations in their game. So,
and what's the kicker about Fortnite is no shader pre-compilation on PC. It stutters on PC. I think Epic Games is actually like they're trying to build into UE5, like they're trying to build it so that you don't need to pre-compile shaders. So I think that's why they're not doing it on Fortnite on PC, is because they don't want to. They see that as kind of a workaround rather than other improvements that can be done.
But please, with every other game, give me shader compilation, please, because that is so necessary these days.
Actually, one thing we talked about, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth coming to PC earlier in the show, and I was just thinking, like, be really nice. You can actually get a pretty good experience in Remake on PC if you do two things. If you switch it to use DirectX 11, which doesn't actually affect the visuals at all, runs and looks just fine. That gets rid of the shader stutters, and then you install the mod to disable dynamic resolution scaling. Runs great. It'd be really nice if Square Enix just updated the game and fixed that so that, maybe people would be willing to play both on PC.
Yeah, well, this was a really good show, guys. I'm going to have to end it here. But I want to thank our guest tonight, the Turk. Thank you for being here. If you want, let everybody know where they can find you. And I've got the link to your YouTube channel down below, but go ahead and give it out where they can find you.
Yeah, sure. So you can find me here on YouTube at The Turk. I do kind of PC console hybrid analysis, kind of like what Digital Foundry does. I am having to kind of take a step back due to my professional issues to changing my content a little bit. But if you want to hear some of my hijinks, or if you like, me kind of complaining about PS5 Pro fanboys, you can follow me over on X at The Turk as well. I like to share data and show people information and try and communicate what it means to actually understand your hardware. So I appreciate y'all having me on.
I appreciate you being here. Jake, let everybody know where they can find you on the socials.
As usual, I'm at FSAPO Jake, Fasapo Jake, on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. Same thing with YouTube, although, like I said, much to Fonz's dismay, I don't really upload to there anymore like I used to. Maybe I'll get back to that someday. But
yeah, someday.
Mostly you're finding me on Twitter and X, and mostly trying to get better, but mostly just arguing with fanboys.
And every now and then, when you have the time, Jake will be here as like a third panel member. And it's good to have his tech know-how. I really like to pick his brain about this stuff. And that's another thing why we had the Turk here today, because I really wanted to pick his brain as well. Hargeet, where can they find you, sir?
So you can pick up my book if you like, shop.china.us. And if you want to subscribe to my channel, Hargeet China 1, go ahead and subscribe there. I'll be on with WebDave tomorrow. We'll be going over obviously the Game Awards. So check that out, 7 p.m. US Eastern Time on WebDave's channel. And it was nice to have both of you on. It was great to.
Also, it's not just Jake and the Turk. Hargeet's also a very tech savvy person as well. So.
Totally.
Yeah, I guess 3070 was the correct assumption, huh? Gee, not 4090, not 4070.
I do remember you saying 3070 a while back.
Like 3070-ish. Like, let's wait for it to come out, right? And this is always my contention, was like, why are we jumping the gun and assuming this thing is something that it's not? Let's wait for it to come into our hands. We'll see what it does.
My argument early on was that Sony told us to expect up to 45% performance increase, and we know the 4070 is on average 60 to 70% above the RX 6700. So Sony told us what to expect.
Facts.
That was my argument.
Anyway, I don't want to fanboy, so whatever. It is what it is. It was great to have your analysis of things, so that was good to hear. So
yeah. Well, until next time, I want to thank everybody in the chat here live and everybody who listens after on demand. I appreciate all of you guys. Can't talk today. And you know what? Until next week, game on, guys.